Okay, it is very bright, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting the thumbs up that I am on and therefore should not stop saying mean things about the people in the audience. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along to my session this afternoon. I know it already feels a little bit like it's the Friday afternoon. We're not really used to being back at conferences. Whole yesterday, people talking, learning stuff was exhausting. And unlike the last couple of years, we had to leave the house and like put on real pants to come here. So we'll try and keep this a nice light session this afternoon so that you can recharge and get through the final session before the party tonight. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Amy. I'm a freelance front-end developer, which means I spend most of my time at the beach and the rest of the time working from my pajamas. So in theory, the pandemic changed absolutely nothing for me, except I was technically allowed to leave the state. I just wasn't going to be allowed back in if I did. I'm heavily involved in the Perth tech community. I run a user group, the Perth Azure user group, and am vice chair and director of conference content for what I've been told is the largest tech conference in Australia, DDD Perth, which ran a couple of weeks ago. I also have a beautiful grey and white border collie who features fairly heavily in my talks because who doesn't like looking at pictures of dogs? And he's not a huge fan of the fact that I'm leaving again, although to be fair, he does far prefer my partner to me, so I'm also not sure that he actually knows that I'm gone. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a Quokkabot, which is a side project that I did for fun, which has zero practical uses whatsoever a couple of years ago. So we're going to go through, and because I don't know any better, this talk is pretty much all live demo. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and build a Quokkabot. So for those who don't know what a Quokka is, thank you for completely trusting the fact that you have no idea what you're walking into here. Quokkas, as the image suggests, are very small, cute little animals. They are only found in one island off the coast of Western Australia where I live. They have no natural predators on this island, and as such, they don't realize that they should be afraid of people. They also always look like they're smiling. So because you can get up close and personal and they look like they're smiling, they take excellent selfies. Though the paws struggle to hold the cameras, so usually you've got to do it for them. Now, because everyone's familiar that everything in Australia is trying to kill them, everyone knows this, right? Everything in Australia is trying to kill us? Hardly ever happens, yes. Because everything's trying to kill us, I wanted to build something to showcase that we do have some cute animals as well. There are non-lethal creatures in Australia. So a few years ago, for an event that was happening in Sydney, I had to build a chatbot in, I think it had about 10 minutes. And so I decided to build a bot that sent you pictures of Quokkas. So we used very, very advanced AI in the bot, where if you sent a message that included the word Quokka, it would send you a picture of a Quokka. If you didn't include the picture of a Quokka, if you didn't include the word Quokka, it would send you a picture of my dog. So either way, you ended up with a cute photo. After I did this demo, I was like, this was actually really easy. It was fun to play around with some stuff. I got to tinker with serverless, which I don't normally get to do. I was chatting with some friends at the drinks afterwards, where all good ideas come from. And someone went, why don't you add AI to it? We could do image recognition. And so, because that's where all good ideas come from, we decided to tinker with it a little bit and add some cognitive services using the Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services Custom Vision tool, which allowed us to use machine learning, aware, not AI, machine learning, to recognize pictures of quokkas. So you can send in a picture and it would tell you if the picture contains a quokka or not. So today we're going to go through and start building out the bot. Now, this bot is built using WhatsApp. As much as I would love to not use a Facebook product, unfortunately, most telcos around the world are really weird about people using their phone systems for APIs, so they won't let you do anything with MMS. So to send and receive images, we went with using WhatsApp. So let's get started. So here I have an Azure function already set up and ready to go. And I'm going to start off by requiring the package from Twilio, which I'm going to use to generate and send the message. And then I'm not going to type this, I'm just going to copy and paste it, because we have better things to do today than watch me fumble with a keyboard. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and create a messaging response from the package. The messaging response uses a certain a language called TWIML, which is pretty much XML. We use that to generate the message. Now, in our function, we set the message body to be welcome to Quokkabot. And this should do it. So then if I open up WhatsApp and go, hi, in theory, I should get a response. Welcome to Quokkabot. So pretty quickly, we've been able to get some responses. But I did say we wanted to choose what people were looking at. So we're going to go through and use our very, very advanced AI, otherwise known as an if-else statement. Sorry. So we're going to go through, and when someone sends us a message, we actually want to know what the message says. So to do this, we're going to have to pass the message, and we're going to have to use the query string package for that. And then I'm going to pass the message that comes through. So I'm going to pass the body, and then the text is the body of the body. And then I'm going to log that out to the console just so we can have a look at what's going on. So now when I send a message and go, hi, it's gone through and processed it, and somewhere here what's worked. I need to use context log because I'm doing Azure Functions. And now, here, in amongst all the other stuff, I can see I have a message that says hi. What's up, Quokkabot? We're at NDC Oslo, so something a little bit more. What's up, Quokkabot? We're at NDC Oslo. Apparently we're not sure that we're at NDC Oslo. So once we've gone through and gotten that, we're then going to add our very advanced AI. So I'm going to grab this over here. If the message contains the word Quokka, we're being case insensitive here. We're going to test it against the text and set the message body to be you want a Quokka. We let them know that they're asking for a Quokka. If not, we're going to set the message body to say, well, you didn't ask for a quokka. You sure? Because clearly you want a quokka. Can I have a quokka? And I should get a response back. I didn't save it. And let's try again. Can I have a quokka? It is really not liking me today. Just going to remove this altogether. Wow, Quokkabot is determined. I'm going to restart this.
It's context.dom is
Yeah.
line 25. Line 25 is where you're getting welcome to, so that's it's returning. You have to body return message.
Ah, good point. So really this should not have worked before. Everyone learns more by helping me, right? Okay, this is what I should have. Context.done, and we're setting the body to the message to string, and we're also setting the headers to use text XML because we're using XML for the Twiml message. Now, I should get a response back. It is really not liking me today. Ah, there we go. Stray bracket somewhere. What are we, 6th time lucky? Here we go. Yay. Hi, you didn't ask for a quokka. Are you sure? Can I have a quokka? You want a quokka. Awesome. So, but when someone asks for a quokka, we don't just want to tell them, hey, you asked for a quokka. They kind of already know that. We want to give them an image. So to do that, I'm going to we're going to go through and we're going to have a look at another function we're using. I'm not going to go through and type this all out because we don't have time for that, because clearly I'm going to take a little bit longer to actually write the code. So here, what we're going to do, this is not the one I want. Here. Okay. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and have a look, and we're going to check, does the message include the word quokka? If it does, we're going to give it an image. Now, this image is also being randomly generated based on the fact that we have 20 images in a folder, and it will randomly generate which image it uses each time. The fallback from our if statement is we're then still going to send them a picture of a quokka, because you know what, even if they haven't asked for a picture of a quokka, clearly people don't realize that they want a picture of a quokka. So we're going to go through and I'm going to pull in my Quokkabot function. And because I'm doing this check elsewhere, I'm going to go through and I'm going to build a reply using my external Quokkabot function. No, wrong one. There we go. So I'm going to build my reply. I'm going to feed in the text that I get in the image, and my Quokkabot function uses different versions it will get back, and I'm specifically letting it know I want to use plain text, not HTML. And let's log out the reply that we get back. So now I go, I'm just going to go hi. And here I have logged out to my console. Welcome to Quokkabot. It's sending us a whole bunch of information. And here it has a URL to an image of a Quokka. So at the end of my function, I'm going to go through and now set message.body to equal the reply.body, which the Quokkabot function is generating, and message.media to equal reply.media, which is the image URL. Now, when I send through hi, I should get a response back, which is, welcome to Quokkabot. I can do a bunch of different things. Need a picture? Just ask me. Not sure if you've seen a Quokka, send in a picture and I will tell you if there's a Quokka in it. Now, can I have a Quokka? And there's a picture of a Quokka. You might not be able to see it. The Quokka's a little bit small. The Quokka decided it wanted to hire a bike, which is the best way to get around Rottnest Island. So here we go. We've gone through and we're checking whether or not someone has asked for a Quokka, and we'll send them a picture of a Quokka. And if someone hasn't asked for a Quokka, we're going to send them a picture of a Quokka and let them know what else we can do. But the whole point of this is we need people to be able to send in pictures and work out if there's a Quokka in it. So this is where the custom vision API comes into play. Now, custom vision was a recommended tool when I got started doing this. The main reason I used it was because it was really easy and I didn't have to delve too deep into how machine learning worked or spend a lot of time working out how to do it. I gave it a bunch of images and I said these are Quokkas, and then I gave it a bunch of other images and said these are not Quokkas, and then I clicked the button that said train model, and it spent a whole lot of time thinking, and it identified a whole lot of things, so it was able to recognize Quokkas. We then went through and tried to confuse it with a bunch of other things, like so when you find Lego Quokkas, we're like, this is still a Quokka. So we're really confused about the fact that that was a Quokka, same as illustrations of Quokkas and pictures of not Quokkas. Because they try and get in everywhere, so they've got to have these little doors to stop them from getting into stores. So we sent in a whole lot of pictures to train it on how it went. So this training model has been through a lot of iterations. I think we're currently at version 13. So I've gone through and done it. At the start, it was fairly good. There are a few different Australian animals that confused it. Wallabies, small kangaroos, wombats confused it for some reason. I think they probably don't see the tails in the Quokkas and the fact that wombats don't have tails or don't have long tails. So it was confused about that for a while. However, a whole bunch of people sent these animals in. I was able to go through and recategorize it. So on each image, I'm able to go through and let it know that actually it's wrong. A wombat is not a Quokka, and that's able to make it more accurate. So it has been super useful having a whole lot of people on the internet doing it. When it was really confused about wombats, one person sat there and sent in like 40 photos of wombats. and I was able to go through and retrain it and go, these are not Quokkas. So later on in the talk, you're going to get a chance to go through and try this out yourself. So I challenge anybody who manages to trick Quokkabot and send in something that it thinks is a Quokka that it's actually not, because at the moment it's looking pretty accurate. So we're going to go through and link up custom vision to our Quokkabot. So to do this, I'm just going to copy and paste this all across and then we can talk through the code. So I have another file here, which is Quokka test, which is where I go through and run the test on the image. So custom vision has two API clients. There's prediction and training, I think is the other one. So if I wanted, I could set it up. People could send in pictures of Quokkas and it would retrain the model. But for the moment, we're just doing prediction. I then have all my API key credentials, which I have saved elsewhere because I only showed my API key that one time and I swear it's not going to happen again. Turns out most services are actually really good. I think I managed to get like 2 minutes before I had an email going, yeah, you realize you made this public. We've cut it off. Here's how to get a new one. So we go through, we create a results variable. We then fill the results variable by using our predictor, and we're using the classify image URL function. So this means we send in a image URL, as the name suggests. We also give it the project ID, so this is the particular image model that I'm training, that I'm running it against, and the iteration. As I said, this has been through multiple different iterations, so I can actually run it against a very early version if I wanted, but at the moment I believe we're running against 13. I also then give it the URL of the image. The WhatsApp API is actually pretty useful with that side because it actually gives me a live URL of the image that I can use, so I didn't have to play around with uploading it somewhere to the internet. I also then generate the outcome from the results, which we're going to go through and have a look here. So it gives us a whole lot of data back from custom vision, but we don't need much of that information. All we need to know is the prediction results. So it gives me 2 percentages, one for the Quokka tag and one for the negative tag. So I'm going through and getting the probability from the negative tag and the probability from the Quokka tag. And I'm then just going to return that outcome back. So I get the 2 numbers that I need. So I go through, I've gotten the image from my WhatsApp message. This does actually allow me to have multiple images being sent in, but for the moment I just want to keep it to 1 image. So if there's an image, if there's any number of images, I'm going to get the first one. If there is an image, I'm then going to send that through to custom vision. Once I get the results back, which remember that's then 2 numbers, Quokka and not Quokka, I'm going to send the results through to another function, which is Quokka results. And this just goes through and formats the message, formats the results into a nice, easy to read message. So it converts the probability results into a percentage, so it's a bit easier to read, and it will then format a message. So I've got a bit of a function here. It says, so sorry, that doesn't look like a Quokka, puts the results in, it's pretty sad there. Here's a Quokka, or yep, that looks like a Quokka, and then the results. And I may be about to be in trouble because my computer has just said that it's going into low power mode because it's refusing to charge. This is going to be fine. So we're going to go through and get the results back. From that, we have the reply. The reply also then includes a photo, which we're going to go through and send as the media. We then go through and send the message at the end. So if we didn't get an image, we still run the reply through the Quokkabot function, but this time is when it gives us some information about Quokkabot, what you can do, and again, sends a picture of a quokka. So now I'm going to go through and send in an image. Here's one I prepared earlier. So it's going to go through, it's going to have a look and run this through custom vision, and I should get some results back. It says, yes, that looks like a quokka. Now, if you don't believe me, if you think that I have clearly planned this, give it a go yourself. So if you have WhatsApp installed on your phone, you should be able to scan this QR code and it will open up a new conversation with Quokkabot. I will also add a disclaimer that all photos that are sent into Quokkabot will at some point soon be shown on the screen. Please keep this in mind. Be aware of the conference code of conduct, and please don't get me in trouble. So, once we've gone through and done that, everybody should be able to send in pictures and get back results on whether or not that is a quokka. Perhaps you don't have a picture of a quokka to send in or something that looks like a quokka. Remember, you can still ask it for a picture. But this isn't super interesting to do all the time. Like, it's okay to be able to send in images, but we wanted something that was a little bit more interactive for if I wanted to showcase the bot at a conference. So we're using another API, which is a sync API, which I'm not going to go into too much, but every time someone sends in an image, I add that image to a list of past results, as well as the results that you get back from custom vision. Every time Quokkabot sends an image, I will then also go through and update the previously sent image, which I'm then able to build out in a results page. So this page is live updating. So as people send in pictures of quokkas or things that might look like quokkas, this page should go through and update to include the last sent in image, the results from the last sent in image, and then the last picture that Quokkabot sent back. So this way I'm able to go through and see what people are sending in and see the results that have come back, which is pretty cool. So after we went through and did all this, I was like, well, you know, not everybody uses WhatsApp. So I'd really love to include another form of communication for Quokkabot. So I had to think about some really good, well-used modern forms of communication and which ones we could integrate. Like, clearly fax was a high up one. Unfortunately, all the companies that offer fax APIs no longer do. Apparently people aren't using faxes anymore. So I went with the next most popular form of communication, which is email. Because who doesn't love emails? So I'm not going to go through this because anybody who really would like to know about how fun it is to deal with email APIs, happy to come up to me later. Happy to answer any questions that you have or for me to just tell you how much fun it was to deal with doing this. So for anybody who hasn't dealt with email APIs before, fun fact, emails from APIs typically come through as multi-part form data, which is a particularly fun format of data to deal with, mainly because there's a lot of packages out there to pass said data, so it's really, really easy to use, except the time that I was doing this, none of them worked with Azure Functions. They were all really good for like Express or something like that. None of them worked with Azure Functions. However, one did work with Azure Functions. The only problem was it was assuming multi-part form data was more from like a HTML form, and it didn't like images coming through. So I spent a lot of time fighting with that, and thankfully had quite a few friends who got roped into helping me with the fact that I was not a fan of JavaScript and things were not working. And eventually we got it sorted. So for our email function, we go through and pass the form data, which is now super easy to do because they fixed the package I was using. We then go through and check, does the email include an image? If so, I get the image. This image comes through as a buffer, which means I can still send it through to custom vision, but for WhatsApp, we used the classify image URL. For emails, we use the classify image buffer function. So we send through the buffer of the image file. We then go through, and I've been using the SendGrid API to receive and send the messages back. I go through and format a bit of information. We talked about with the Quokkabot reply, we were using plain text for WhatsApp. There are HTML versions of each of my messages as well, which I use for email. And the same as WhatsApp, if there's an image, send it to custom vision. Let my function know that I'm sending in binary information this time, and it will use the binary function. I then get the results back again as HTML, and then set the message as the reply. So now, if I open up my email, if I can find it. Now if I open up my email, I'm going to send an email to hi@quokkas.dev. I'm just going to send a message that says hi. And I should get a response back. Here we go. I have an email. Welcome to Quokkabot. So I should now also be able to send through an image. There are quokkas in this photo. I think I'll insert it. hi@quokkas.dev. Is this a quokka? And then send it through. And while we're waiting for the email response to come back, you can try this yourself as well. So the email is hi@quokkas.dev. You can send an email through and talk to Quokkabot that way. While I wait for my response. See, isn't email fun to use? This was clearly the best option. Am I getting an error here? Fun. What have I got here? I think my image was too big. That one's probably going to be too big as well, but we'll give it a go. Hi at quokkas.dev. Yes, I want to send without a subject. And we'll give this a go. While that's going through and probably failing again, because this wasn't good enough, I wanted to let people know some information about Quokkas. So I added functionality to send in a Quokka fact. Now, I could have searched the internet for all of these facts, but that sounded like a lot of work to me. So instead, I open sourced it. And during Hacktoberfest, I created an issue on the repo and said, add a fact about Quokkas to this array, and I'll approve the pull request and you get a Hacktoberfest point. And it was really great because I had a whole lot of facts about Quokkas sent in, most of which from people who I'm pretty sure had no idea what a Quokka was, but they were able to go through and participate in Hacktoberfest. So I go through and grab a random item from my array. So if somebody asks for a fact, it will send through a random fact. So now I can go, can I have a fact? And here we go, fun Quokka fact, number 511. Quokkas have the ability to swim, but you won't find them doing the butterfly stroke very often. This is technically a Quokka. Wow, WhatsApp is not liking me at the moment. So I'm able to go through and send in a Quokka fact. I also added the functionality. So as well as checking for if someone included the word Quokka, I checked for if their message includes the word fact. If it included the word fact, I send in a fact. I also wanted people to be able to report if there were any issues. So we added the functionality of if the message includes the word error, issue, or wrong, it would then report a bug, which would send through an image to me. This is going to be really fun. Anybody happen to have a service charger in the room?
Surface is in.
A Microsoft Surface charger?
I'll get you one in about 1 minute.
I think there was one coming from the back.
No, I haven't.
This is why. Any questions while I'm plugging in? Do you want some questions early? Can Quokkas see in the dark? I would hazard a guess yes, because fun fact, Quokkas are nocturnal. So Quokkas are actually nocturnal animals, which is why during the day they seem very slow and sleepy and don't really move much. But if you ever spend any time on Rottnest Island at night, they become entirely different creatures. They bounce around, they get into tents, they get into anything that you have food that you haven't tied down. And yeah, they become entirely different creatures. Can they climb trees? I would hazard a guess they probably can climb trees. They are small marsupials, so they can bounce a little bit. I'm not sure they'd climb, but they could probably hop up trees. Can you have them as... Okay, are people just getting facts and then asking me the questions?
Do you know if it's possible to implement it in Teams?
Yes, but I don't want to touch that. Yep.
Question not about about your project. Can you? So this was a side project to build this. Do you have an idea on how many hours that it took? Oh, that big, say it's a big side project.
How many hours it's taken me to build this?
Do you want to admit that?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could work it out. I've definitely spent at least 100 hours on this. I'm not entirely sure if I've spent more than 200. However, taking the presentation into account, I'd probably be getting on 200 hours. Clearly, far too much. Yes. Yes, the time spent dealing with email was included in those hours, so that was a lot of time. Yeah, half of that was fighting with emails. So, a little bit of information about how this works while my computer finishes its tantrum. For the record, it was 75% when I started this talk. So, there are two versions of this, email and WhatsApp. So the email sends when you send in a WhatsApp message, it goes to the Twilio WhatsApp API, which then triggers the Azure function, which sends it through to Cognitive Services Custom Vision and goes back again. The email version sends from computers or phones through to the SendGrid API, to Azure Functions, then to Custom Vision and back again. There is information about this on quokkas.amyscapers.dev, which I will tweet out later, and I have information about how it all works, as well as going step by step through how I built it. So I wrote a blog post when I first originally built it, and then when we added the custom vision, I went through and wrote another blog post. And then I wanted to play around with the Azure Static Web Apps. And so I wrote another blog post as I went through and rebuilt it with that. So it was originally two separate services. There was the front-end website and the Azure function, but then I made it all under Azure Static Web Apps, which was really cool to play around with. Also has information about how you can use it. So if you still don't believe me, you're able to continue to go away and start bugging it. It does go to sleep at times. So if you don't get a response the first time, just kind of ping it a few times and it'll wake up the serverless function and sort it out. Now, this is a project that I say has zero practical applications and was entirely for fun and playing with tech. However, I've had plenty of people asking about ways that you can expand it. So what this is doing is sending an image through a various communications API. It's then sending that image through to a machine learning model and getting results back. So there are plenty of practical applications that you could use for this. I've had someone expand this and do redback or not API. So you send in a picture of a spider and it will tell you if it's a redback spider or not. That kind of defeated the purpose of showcasing non-lethal Australian animals to me. I kind of wanted to keep it cute. I've also had someone come up after I've given this at a conference, and they worked for a local government and wanted to use it to, if you could train the model to recognize what was actually recyclable material, you could take a photo of what was in your recycling bin and it'd tell you if something wasn't supposed to be there. So there are plenty of different applications that you could do it. However, I wanted to have a play around and have a little bit of fun with it. So you can do that. I will be hanging around for the rest, well, not for the rest of the conference. I will be around for the rest of the day and for a bit tomorrow morning. If anybody has any questions they would like to ask me afterwards. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. If you would like to know more about the Azure Functions and the Cognitive Services API. I'm pretty sure there's a booth somewhere that knows something about that. I don't know, there's people in shirts with lightning bolts on it somewhere. There's a Microsoft booth where you can go and have a chat to them. They're talking all about Azure Functions. So you can go and see them if you have any questions that I can't answer. Does anybody have any questions about the bot?
Is this bot still running? Because I'm not getting any replies.
Is this bot still running? Technically, yes, it should be. I'm going to restart it. You know what? I don't trust this. I'm going to switch it back to the live version. There we go. This bot is now switched back to the live version, so that should be running. Give that a go. Ask a question again in a couple of minutes if it's still not working. Yep.
I have a question, a technical question. How did you came on the point to build this, let's say, just do it with Azure services and not with, because Microsoft and the cognitive services has also the bot service. So how did you make the decision just doing the WhatsApp and things with Azure functions instead of the full-blown bot suite, and why did you think it's the best way for that project?
So why did I build it with the WhatsApp and Azure Functions rather than using a full bot suite?
Yeah.
So the original purpose of this, I was actually speaking at a Twilio Superclass event. So oddly enough, they wanted me to use a Twilio Communications API for my demo. So it originally did that. I think I had considered building it in something else along the way, but it's sort of one of those things where you sort of don't really think about it until it's like, oh, it'd be a lot of work to rebuild it from scratch now. I also mainly used it as an opportunity to play around with various different APIs that I wanted to try. So even though it was probably a bit more work to do it that way, it was an opportunity to play around with a few different things rather than a bot service, which I would hazard a guess, definitely make my job easier, but would be less fun. Yeah.
So I have uploaded a picture there. You see
Mm-hmm.
night vision. It says not Quokka.
Wow, you've managed to trick it. A night vision Quokka is not Quokka. I am really impressed. Come and find me afterwards, and I have a shiny Quokka sticker, very limited edition shiny Quokka sticker for you. So that is impressive. Although, to be fair, I would like to point out that that Quokka is very clearly evil looking. So, I would hazard a guess cuteness seems to play in the machine learning. Oh wow, I think it's disappeared, but I think there was a baby Quokka in a pouch, which it said wasn't a Quokka. So if someone sent that in and wants to come up afterwards, there's another shiny Quokka sticker in it, because that was a Quokka. Sorry? A fox? Oh, was it a fox? Ah, okay. So it was a fox. All right, I just saw it very quickly and then it disappeared and it looked like a baby Quokka in a pouch.
No, he's saying there's a second one.
Oh, there's a fox that said, okay, if anybody has a result that it said was a Quokka, then it wasn't, come and see me after the talk. I have some shiny Quokka stickers. I'm actually really impressed. I haven't managed to have anybody trick it for a very long time. So clearly Norwegians have some interesting animals that look like quokkas. Any other questions? Yep.
What's the approximate pricing rate for the WhatsApp API or the Twilio integration?
What's the pricing for the WhatsApp API? I have no idea. So I think it comes down to like 0.01 cents per message or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But the real cost is you have to pay for the phone number that you use, and Australian phone numbers are super expensive to get. So I think I pay $5 to $8 a month for that one, which is super fun for a bot that actually sits there and does nothing for a large portion of time. So yeah, don't quote me on that one. But I think when everyone uses it at a conference, I pay nothing for that. It's really just the ongoing cost of having the phone number.
What about the Azure functions?
What about the Azure functions? Oh, I actually don't know about that one either. Come and see me afterwards. I can have a look. I'm not going to get my Azure portal up on the screen. And even if I try not to do it, it will somehow end up on the projector. Yeah, come and see me afterwards and I'll find out. Although, full disclosure, I am a Microsoft MVP, so I don't pay that myself. Any other questions? I don't think anyone's ever asked about costs. Any other questions?
When you were doing the WhatsApp thing, you sent in a public URL
Yep.
with the image.
Yep.
Does that mean any images you sent through WhatsApp are available on a public URL somewhere?
Yes, so when I sent through the image, it had a public URL. Does that mean all images from WhatsApp you send on WhatsApp have a public URL? I don't work for WhatsApp and I avoid dealing with WhatsApp where possible, but I would hazard a guess that means yes. Let me see if I can, do I have here in the console somewhere? I don't think I logged out the URL. So it would depend on whether or not it's WhatsApp or Twilio that has the public image URL. So yeah, it might just be the Twilio API that does that. I can have a look after, come up and see me afterwards and we can have a play around and see if it gives you a public URL for that one.
Is any of the code available on GitHub?
Any of the code available on GitHub? All of the code is available on GitHub because I cannot be asked making things private. Like, seriously, if someone wants to go through and have a look at my code on GitHub, that's fine, go for it. GitHub.com. Yep, so I can tweet this out afterwards. So it's github.com/AmyKapernick/Quokkas. And there's no security dependencies. Yes, all of the code is available there on GitHub. You can also see as I go through and made changes. I'm pretty sure it's got all the way back to when I first started building it on there. So you can have a look at it. There's probably still the commit of when I accidentally added my API key to it. So
There's a thing, just for your, there's a thing called BFG that will nuke all that for you.
BFG that would nuke.
It'll go back and clear out all your commits and get rid of it, just so it'll be clean.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So you can clean up the commit, the one with the API key.
Oh, no, it's fine. So I don't need to clean my commit because as soon as I committed my API key, Twilio sent me an email and said, you've committed your API key, we've nuked it, here's how to refresh it. So they sorted that for me. So yeah, all of the code is available on GitHub. I'll tweet it out afterwards. Any other questions?
Does aspect ratio matters here? Like, how are you handling the image aspect ratio?
Does image aspect ratio matter? I would hazard a guess no. I am doing absolutely nothing to the images. So I did look at processing the images. So that way if someone sent in a massive image, it would squish it down. But I started doing it and then gave up because that was a lot of work going through and processing images. I would hazard a guess that aspect ratio doesn't matter. I've had people sending in landscape, portrait, square images. So yeah, that doesn't make as much of a difference. The images it sends back, I do believe, are all square, but that's just because I've gone through and cropped them all and made them smaller.
So
Everyone just wants a sticker.
Yeah. Very wide image with a quokka on the edge, and it's not detecting the quokka. Is the image, which one? This one?
No, and if I see here, yeah, for example, left, top one left.
That one? That one.
Yeah, so it cropped like with, yeah, no.
Ah, that one. I'm pretty sure aspect doesn't. I'd say that's more. I'm pretty sure this is a computer generated quokka. It looks a bit like the ones we get in some ads, so that might not be it. Other than that, I'm not sure aspect ratio makes a difference. Anybody happens to have a really wide image with a quokka on the side, see if you can break it. Any other questions?
How fast is the custom validation with the custom what's the name of the API?
The image prediction, the custom vision. How fast is it? I'm not too sure. I think the results actually come through fairly quickly. But then again, I still think that, a couple of seconds is fairly quickly when people are like, oh no, this should be in no more than 2 milliseconds. It comes through fairly quickly. It's the lag, I think, is more to do with the fact that my Azure function is like the base level. I'm not using anything fancy. It's not very big. It doesn't have much power behind it. And it's probably definitely not rated for when I use it at conferences and there's a bunch of people spamming it at once. So yeah, from my experience, the predictions have been pretty good. The one thing with custom vision that does take time is if I go through and do training, depending on how many images I'm training, it takes between a couple of minutes and like an hour to go through and retrain it. Does that answer the question? Any other questions? So wait, this is like the most, normally people are like, no questions. I even try bribing people with chocolates at times. Like if you ask a question here, I'll give you a chocolate. And still people don't ask questions. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I'm pretty sure we're out of time. Thank you everybody for bearing with my technical difficulties, my computer going flat, and the fact that I clearly can't write code this afternoon. I wanted to say this morning, but it's actually this afternoon. Let's just blame my jet lag 5 days after I arrived in Oslo. So thank you very much for coming along to my talk. I hope you learnt some interesting things today. At the very least, learnt what a quokka was, which is clearly the most important part of my talk. If you have any questions, if any more questions, you're welcome to come up and have a chat to me afterwards, or find me at some point at the conference. Enjoy.